first, my friend? So we are going to go ahead and get started. I hope. All right, so welcome back to Managing the Game. We are going to cover a few different topics today. As always, if you have questions, go ahead and pop your mic off or pop your mic on and ask those. If you have comments or anything to add, throw that in the chat. But as always, rules, expectations, be respectful of other people's time. We know most of us are on lunch break. So let's make sure that we are productive with this. And then topics, questions, anything you have for us, feel free to reach out. So we're going to start off today with conferences, how to administer conferences. So we have two types of conferences at the high school level and amateur level. We use the same rule here in South Dakota, where you have basically an unlimited amount of conferences per game. As the defense and offense. And defense is where we typically see the most conferences. There's not a ton of offensive conferences that happen. So we're going to cover defense first and then hit offense second. So when we have a defensive conference, typically that's the catcher or the coach going out to the mound to visit with the pitcher. As just kind of a general refresher, they get one of those per inning. If they make a second trip to the same pitcher in the same inning, they have to remove that pitcher by rule. So how long do we allow a coach and pitcher or catcher and pitcher to conference for? There's no defined rule. It's really just a feel thing. Everybody's going to have a different opinion on this. But ultimately, give them enough time to be effective at what they're doing, but also not unnecessarily delay the game. You kind of have a feel of like when everybody starts to get a little restless that's not involved in that conference, that's a good indicator of when to go out and break it up. I usually have a protocol that I follow that seems to work really well for me, which is typically coach goes out or catcher or coach goes out, and the speed at which they go out to the mound dictates how long I give them. Are they wasting time, or are they truly going out? If they go out, they go out and I'm going to say hustle, but I don't expect a coach to jog out of the dugout, right? But if they're moving at a good pace, I'm going to be a little bit more lenient and give them a little bit more time because they're not going out to just delay the game or slow things down. Once the coach gets to the mound, so I'll grant time, step out in front of the plate. Once they get to the mound, I'll turn around and clean the plate off. And I'm usually very diligent with cleaning out the plate because I take my time. That's kind of one of my timing mechanisms. I want to make sure it's nice and clean. We're ready to go. I'm going to turn around and I'm going to pause for probably 5 to 10 more seconds. And then I'm going to walk straight out to the mound in a business-like manner. And as I go to the mound, I'm pulling my lineup card out of my pocket and my pen. And when I get to the mound, it's usually, hey, coach, are we using a trip or are we making a change? And that kind of signifies, all right, it's time to wrap it up. So basically, I'm giving them 2 options on what they can do at that point in time. They can end the trip and go back to the dugout, or they can make a change. It doesn't allow a whole lot of wiggle room of like, hey, are we ready to go? Right? Because then they can sit there and keep talking. I'm essentially inserting myself into their conversation in a polite manner, telling them it's time to move on. It's time to go to the next step. Some guys will, like I used to walk up to the 45 and then straight into the mound from that way. And that's how I timed my conference, is how long it took me to get there. That's how long you had to talk. After I clean the plate, some people will loop around the backside of the mound and come back straight through it. But ultimately, what you want to do is you want to get in the view of players when you're walking up to the mound, players or the coach. Get in their line of sight because they'll see you coming, and that clues them in. You're not taking them by surprise, essentially. So that's how I handle it. If they say, no, you're just using the conference, say, all right, let's go. And I'll record it while they're wrapping up. So I'll write it down on my lineup card or my trip recording card. And then I put my card in my pocket and I jog back to home plate once they start breaking it up. Jake, Russ, anything different, anything I forgot on defensive conferences?
No, I use the same timing mechanism. I usually will, if it's a catcher trip, I'll record the conference before I head out to the mound, especially in a college game. If it's involving a coach, I definitely will wait till the last second. And some of the stuff, guys, that we're talking about, like high school's got its own conference rule. Even in a game where I'm not supposed to record my conferences, I still record my conferences. These are great. We got a bunch of different rule-specific conference tracking charts that we can make available. Mine, I think I got like $10 and it was a pack of like 20 of them. This one's from last night. See, I just write in all my information, what inning, the batter, player, the count, score was, and that works really well. I don't use them per se in high school. Typically, if I'm in high school, I'll just take my lineup card and I'll flip it around back and I'll just say,
thanks.
Trip, whatever, top, bottom, whatever inning it was, how many outs there were and who was involved. And the reason that I do that at the lower levels, yes, there is a restriction of conferences in a high school game. And so, but I want to be able to say, if I don't have it, if I'm not working a game that I have conference rule in, I want to be able to say, hey, coach, you already took your trip this inning. Oh, no, I didn't. No, coach, you took your trip when there was one out and you had a runner on second base only. And 13 was up to bat. You got to pull your pitcher. So that's why I record them. I like the verbiage. One thing that I like to say is I like to ask what's going on. If they're making a trip, it's a great way to start it. And usually if they're not making a trip, they'll start getting a little antsy and start wrapping it up when they kind of see it. And that's another reason that we want to get in their line of sight. And then if they don't seem to be moving or want to move, I'd just say, let's wrap it up. That's what I got.
I think I misspoke. I believe high school has 3 per game or 3 per game or 2 in the same inning. I had to double check on that because I know amateur uses the old pro rule, but I believe high school has a limit of 3, and I don't have a high school book on me right now.
Hey Connor, it's 3 defense is 3 per game. But there's unlimited. You're not required to do. There's no limitation on back to back. So they could do all 3 in the same inning. But you get 3 per 7.
To the same batter.
Yep. They can use all 3 if they want. They just get 3.
Same batter.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
They get 3. They get 3 free ones.
3
if
free.
They use 2 to the same pitcher in the same inning. They have 3 move them. And trips 4 through infinity are all to remove a pitcher.
Yes. Yeah. And if on the second trip out, they pull the pitcher, obviously that doesn't count as a conference.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then 1 offensive per inning.
1 offensive per inning?
In high school, yes.
It's a lot of conferences. I'm glad coaches don't know that.
Yeah. That's not something I go telling people.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, nice work. I don't have anything to add. This is Russ, by the way. I'm really not Adam Berg.
I fixed that.
Okay, that's nice. When discussing, Connor, your thought about, I don't record this conference until I get out to the mound and ask the question. That's a great way to do it. how about when the bullpen is visible, knowing that there's nobody in the bullpen? So the odds of them changing pitchers are pretty rare. There's always the possibility if they're going to move the guy to defense. I get it. And have somebody else in. That's highly unlikely in like the third inning kind of thing, early in the game. Something else to think about.
Yeah.
Hey, Connor, this is another one of those rabbit holes that we love so much that we were talking about that I think we missed on this outline. There is a difference between a charged conference and an uncharged conference. And that the most frequent uncharged conference that you would see is when the pitcher is injured, or I should say a player is injured. So one thing that we want to do in that situation, if we suspect there's an injury, we want to get ears on that right away. If the line of questioning from the coach is physical, like related to an injury, great. As soon as they start talking about strategy or something like that, even if they're talking about an injury, then we should step in and say, hey, coach, you're out here for injury timeout. If you want to take a charge conference, you can. And then let them make that choice. If they just stop talking or the entire conversation revolves around that potential injury, but once that conference is over, what I do is I will look to the press box and I'll just do this to just indicate that there was not a charged conference.
Cool. Offensive conferences. This is something that doesn't happen very often. As Jesse said, they can use one per inning, an unlimited amount per game. So I guess you run out of conferences when you run out of innings. But the only time we have a charged offensive conference is when the offense meets on their own. So if they meet during a defensive conference in high school and amateur baseball, that is perfectly legal and it does not count towards their charged conferences. If they ask for an extra conference, so let's say I call time and ask Jake to come talk to me because I'm trying to put a play on and he doesn't get the sign, or I want to chew him out because he's not paying attention to signs. That's fine. That's your charged conference that inning. Next batter comes up. We want to change a play. I call time and ask the batter to come talk to me. How are we going to handle that? Because we have to handle that, especially now that we know that rule. Everybody's going to handle this a little differently, and it's going to come down to a personal style and game management type situation of how you do it. Coach, you've already used your one offensive conference inning. You're not allowed to use a second. That's probably how I'm going to handle it. And I'm going to pull my lineup card out and say, Coach, you already used this conference with number 11 with 2 outs and a runner on second. You're out of conferences for this thing. You can't use another conference and not grant time. And that gives me, if I know all that information, how can he argue? Well, no, I didn't. They have no argument with that. So what happens then? Oh, go ahead, Russ.
I was going to say, how about instead of not yelling, but instead of being, just loud enough so they can hear you across the field, how about you say, hey, Doug, hey, Coach, come here, talk to me for a quick second. We need to talk quick. And then have your lineup card out and say, hey, just quietly, hey, I don't know if you remember this. You only get one per inning. I've got you down for just this batter, or 2 batters ago you had one, so you can't go talk to them. So let's go back to the dugout and get moving.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it. It's discreet. It doesn't embarrass them.
Yep.
And you reach your point. So what do we do? Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. That's what I'm saying. You're right.
So what do we do when they ignore us? And conference anyways. I believe in high school, we can restrict them to the dugout first. And it would probably be a, coach, you've already used your warning. You're not allowed to conference, or you've already used your one offensive conference this inning. You're not allowed another one. This is your warning. And if they continue past that, then I think we have to restrict them to the dugout, because that's not a major offense under the NFHS guidelines. But it is failing to heed an umpire's direction, which is in the standards for removal from the game. So I'm probably going to restrict him to the dugout before he starts at offensive conference, so I don't have to worry about that. But kill them with kindness, be as proactive as possible, and try to stop from getting to that point. Because the more proactive we are, the better off we can be, and they can come and be upset with us and talk to us between innings about the rule. But if we are overly kind and overly preventative, it doesn't. It helps us out. It helps with our credibility. It helps with our believability, and it helps make sure that everybody knows we are there to facilitate the game. And it also lets the other coach know that we're on top of stuff, we're taking care of business, and they can expect that if they do something they're not supposed to do, we're going to treat them with kindness, but we're also going to not allow what we can't allow by rule. It kind of sets that standard of, I know what I'm doing, I'm in charge, I'm running the game, I'm facilitating the game, but I'm doing it in a way that shows that we have that professional level of respect. Even with a coach you don't know, you still have to have that professional respect. And then throughout the game, you earn that personal respect.
Connor, is there an opportunity there? Coach doesn't heed your warning to, you've already used your conference, still pulls little Johnny over, because more than likely in high school, especially, they're going to be in the third base coach's box. Can we just have the opportunity to put the ball live there?
No, because you don't have the batter in the box.
Okay.
Only
asked because I worked with the guy once and I saw him do that when batter wouldn't get into the box, and I watched him put the ball live.
At the high school level, we don't have that option. I might, hey, coach, are you making a substitution? Are you going to use a pinch hitter here? And maybe that's a preventative thing. All right, if you're not making a change, I need you back in the box. Explain that to the batter. Hey, if you're not making a change, I need 13 back in the box because you already used your conference. And then we can get to the whole warn, restrict, that kind of thing. But be preventative. All right. Dugouts.
Be preventative because if you're not preventative, what are we going to do with a protest situation from the other coach because you weren't preventative? You let it happen, and then we have a protest.
Yeah.
We got to know our rules and our administration.
All right. Fan favorite topic. Every player's favorite issue. Dugouts. This is something that annoys me to no end, is people out of dugouts when they're not supposed to be, and I'm the one that has to put them in the dugout for their own safety. We had a team Sunday in my game where we put them in the dugouts. They're hanging out on the front side, and they snuck back out, and the batter swung, and the knob broke off of his bat and slung it right at two guys who were standing outside the dugout where they're not supposed to be, because after we put them in, they snuck back out. Luckily, it hit the brick wall and not them. But who can be out of the dugout? Obviously, we have our 9 defensive players, right? From the defensive team, they can have 9 defensive players, and they can have pitchers in the bullpen. They can have a catcher in the bullpen, and they can have a protector if the bullpen's not enclosed. Make sure the protector is wearing a helmet and has a glove so they can protect themselves and the other two people warming up. Outside of that, that's it. No coaches on buckets, no coaches squatting out in front of the fence. They're required to be in the dugout by rule. And it's a liability issue. And if we fail to do that, that person's not going to sue you that gets hit with the foul ball. That's not who we're worried about. It's their insurance company that doesn't want to pay out for that because you didn't do your job. So do what you have to do, put them in the dugout, tell them that's where they're required to be. And we'll talk about how we do that here. From the offensive team, we can have up to seven people out of the dugout on the offensive team at a time. But they are required to be in certain positions when they are out of the dugout. So who can be out of the dugout on the offensive team? A coach in the third base box, a coach in the first base box, right? Those are your two coaches. You can have a runner on first, you can have a runner on second, you can have a runner on third. So that gets us to 5. You can have a batter and 1 on deck hitter. So those 5 players plus 2 coaches equals 7. I only graduated from college twice to learn how to do that math. So if they're not in one of those 7 people, they got to be in the dugout. The hitter in the hole can't be out. You can't allow people to drift out the end of the dugout. You can't have multiple people out the front of the dugout. You can't have the pitching coach on the bucket. You can't have the head coach leaning up against the post. If they're not in the dugout, they're not where they're supposed to be. So how do we address that, and how do we get them to be in the dugout? First thing, when we go up to the plate meeting, which we've covered twice now in the last month of these, of handling plate meetings, look for that kind of stuff. Equipment out of the dugout, buckets sitting in front of the fence, all that kind of stuff. When we go over ground rules, that's a great time to just say, because they're going to talk about dugouts, right? They always cover the dugouts and what's in play, what's out of play. Hey, Jason, I see you got a couple buckets outside. Make sure those are in during dead ball or during play. Those got to be in the dugout. Cool. I'll take care of that. Yep. Awesome. Perfect. Before we put the ball in play for the first pitch, take a peek. Typically, how I pregame this is the plate umpire is going to handle the front of the dugouts, so the plate side, and the base umpire will handle the back side because we can see those areas. As a base umpire, we can't always see if that person's in the dugout or not in the dugout on the front end. We can't see that line of demarcation as a plate if they're in or out. Now, that being said, 90% of our batters are right-handed. We're always going to see the first base dugout on the front side. I'm going to ask my base umpire to help me with the third base dugout, because how many times do we turn and do this to call anything? Hardly ever. But use that time where you're, between batters, that batter's coming up that line, take a peek. When they cause themselves to be noticed, when they draw attention to themselves, look over. If they're not where they're supposed to be, really simple. Hey guys, can I please have you return to the dugout? Say please, coaches won't get on you. If you bark at them, you're demanding, the first time you address it, they're going to chirp back at you. They're not going to like it. But if you continue with it, if you start early, the odds are they're going to stay at least close to that line. And they also can come back and say, well, you let that team be out of the dugout all game. You've only talked to us. Well, if you address it in the first inning, guess what? They're on defense. Over half their team's out on the field right now. They don't have an opportunity to be out of the dugout. So I can't talk to them. And then the first time they're out of the dugout, guess what you have to do? Talk to them, because we have to keep it equal. Coaches, players will find every little thing they can to think you are favoring one team over the other. So if we're consistent in the application of it, we kill them with kindness, it's a lot easier to handle those situations. It's a lot easier to explain to a coach why they have to be in the dugout because you're being kind with it. Hey, coach, by rule, I can't have you out here. You got to be in the dugout.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Jake, you umpire at Harmon all the time. Connor, I know you've umped there before. Do you let the coaches just sit on the bucket on cement or?
So the cement at Harmon is considered part of the dugout. It's dead ball territory. So yes, as long as the bucket's on the dead ball territory, yes, I'll let the bucket be in dead ball territory and their feet be on the grass because they can pick their feet up. But when they try to creep down to the middle of the dugout, no. And they get mad at me and I'm like, I didn't build the field. If I built the field, I'd have put an interest on the front. But I can't allow that. That's a good question, though. I mean, yeah, that's definitely, there's that opening. If the bucket's in the opening, I'm good with it. Because we play that whole, okay, we're going to draw a straight line between the posts. Cool. Make sure the bucket's behind that, we're good. Because then when it hits it, it penetrates the dugout and we're dead anyways.
And it's out of play too. And so the liability issue, I'm not going to say goes away, but if they're where they're supposed to be, you have a lot better ability to stand up and defend what you did or did not do, I guess, in that situation because they were adhering to the rules. And so, yeah, so at Harmon, yeah, if they want to be on the buckets, that's fine if they're out of play. And that's no different than if you're at like Larchwood where they have the high school games where they have the dugout extended forward where it's actually chalked off, same at Renner.
They can't chalk it off forward.
We need to
You're not allowed by rule to extend the dugout towards the plate area.
fix that.
So, yeah, that's another caveat to the dugout rule.
What's his face?
They can extend it away from home plate, but they can't extend it towards home plate. So they want to chalk off an area on the back end, make the dugout bigger, chalk it off, but put the line down.
Right.
I always make them put the line down because then it's everybody's on the same page as whether or not it penetrated. Make it as easy as possible to umpire that play. Another fun aspect of keeping players in the dugout, when they drift out of the dugout, especially when they're especially when they're talking balls and strikes, they leave their position to argue balls and strikes. What is their position if they're not on the field or in their coach's box? Their position is the coach's box or the dugout. When they're out of the dugout and they start throwing out balls and strikes, depending on the temperature of the game, I might just peek over and say, are you leaving your position to argue balls and strikes? And they're usually like, and they back in the dugout. And I don't have to give a ball strike warning. I don't have to ask them to get in the dugout, but I've asked a simple question that makes them stop and think and realize they're in the wrong. And sometimes that little quip fixes that issue. Because if they leave their position to argue balls and strikes, they're subject to immediate ejection. And if they're not in the dugout, they're not in their position. So, I mean, there's different things you can do to get points across by using other rules. When they come out of the dugout to argue your partner's call, hey guys, you can't leave to argue. You can't leave to yell at them. And they say, okay, well, can we yell at them from the dugout? Maybe. Depends on what you're yelling. You know, you can be personable in those situations and get your point across without bringing the hammer down and without resorting to just rulebook verbiage, right? Now, we have to be careful with what we say and how we say it, but sometimes simple things like that, like I'm a huge fan of, are you leaving your position to argue balls and strikes? And they're like, well, he's already told me I have to be in the dugout. And now I've left the dugout, and now I'm arguing balls and strikes. So now he can eject me for two different things. if he really, 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 really wants to. And I'm going to choose to not let him do either of them. So it gets the point across with a soft blow instead of a hard one, if that makes sense. Anything else, Russ, Jake? Any questions? You're going to get pushback. They don't like being told they can't be out on the field, especially in spring in South Dakota when it's 65 degrees and they're in the shade. They want to be out on the field in the warm weather, right, in the sun. I don't blame them, but I'm also going to do my job and do what I have to do, which sucks. And I just tell them, like, I know you want to be out of the sun, guys, but I can't have you out on the field. You got to be in the dugout. Go stand behind the fence down the line. And go sit in the bullpen.
There you go.
Be out in the sun there.
Mm-hmm. Or just have your pitcher throw strikes. So you can go out and coach first or third base.
Yeah. All right.
So you want me to take this one?
Yeah, go ahead.
Cool. All right, we're going to talk about home runs right now. Do you want to pause screen sharing so I can and pull up that video that I sent you like last Thursday?
I'm going to let you pull the video up.
All right, I have it up, so
I will.
That's fine. All right, so let's talk about plate umpire responsibilities here real quick on home runs. So first off, we have to know what our outfield fly ball coverage area is. So generally speaking, if center fielder breaks to the left field or the ball is hit to left field, that is the plate umpire's area of responsibility. Anything else is center fielder going back, forward to right is the base umpire. So we need to first recognize if we're going to have a fair foul situation. We're going to have the fence threatened if it's a home run. And with that as well, we may have, catch, no catch, diving catch, all that's going to be caught at or below the waist. So we got to be aware of that. Once we know if there's a home run that is hit in our fly ball coverage area, once we know that the baseball is out of the park, we'll signal home run, and then we will observe the touch at third base and home, brush the plate off, and put the ball back in play. There's one thing that I intentionally skipped over because this is a really good learning opportunity. Last year, I was working a college game, and I ended up in the seventh inning, I had to throw the catcher off. But, ejections happen. But we try to learn stuff when we have a situation where a player has to be removed. And I called Dan after the game because I had a nice long 4-hour drive to the next town. And conveniently, Dan's not here today. But I called Dan and I kind of gave him this overview of the situation. So the situation was in the third inning, the home run that was hit, and players stepped on home plate and words got exchanged between the hitter and the catcher. And got it settled down, got to the point where we had to issue warnings to both teams. No big deal. Well, we have another home run that gets hit later on, and do a little bit better job of getting rid of the catcher. And nothing really boils over there. Well, we get to the seventh inning, and it's the same two batters, except both are reversed. And catcher hears something out of the dugout, and I don't hear it. I'm going to listen, but if I don't hear it, I don't hear it. And ends up telling me that I'm full of you-know-what, so I have to run it. The point that Dan had made is he had asked me, what did you do with the catcher on that first home run? I said, you know, I created space, but he was still in the dirt circle. He's like, that's your problem. As soon as you know that that ball leaves the stadium, give the catcher a baseball and tell him to go. And if he says where, anywhere. Tell him to go talk to the pitcher. I mean, here's a baseball. Go talk to your pitcher. Get him out of there. It's a great way to diffuse that situation. And it's something that, you know, yeah, we had an ejection out of it. You know, we could we have prevented it? Possibly. I mean, even still what was said could likely still be grounds for an immediate removal, depending on the situation. But we already had warnings in play. And so the point of this is after we determine that we have a home run, get the catcher a baseball, get them out of there. That's just one less player that we have to deal with. Another thing, it's important to know what level you're working because certain levels of baseball have different rules when a home run occurs, who can be on the field. Case in point, if you're working a college game, they're restricted to the warning track unless they're preceding runners or the on-deck hitter. And so that's another way that we can kind of do some preventative umpiring in that we can clear the dirt circle area and, you know, not allow for a situation where we would have a confrontation or anything like that. I guess I'm going to pause here quick. Does anybody have any questions as far as the plate umpire's responsibility on a home run ball?
Regardless of what level you're working, obviously if you work in college or shift to the warning track, don't let them get more than halfway up the walkway to the plate, because that facilitates us getting back into the dugout and getting the ball back in play. And we're not waiting. And don't be afraid to address the players that are out of the dugout. You know, usually he touches, everybody clears the immediate plate area. Here we go, guys. Here we go. And I'll clean the plate off real quick. And then I look up and see where they're at. And I'm going to encourage them to move in the dugout a little bit quicker, because I don't want to sit there and wait. That pitcher just gave up a nuke, and now he's got to wait for them to celebrate it all, run around the bases, and then wait for them to slowly file back into the dugout.
Not sure where this video comes from, but this is a good example where you have this is a walk-off situation. And I wanted to talk about, you know, how we handle walk-offs because tensions build, players, I like to say players and coaches have what we like to call Irish Alzheimer's. They forget everything except grudges. And so this is you know, when you have a walk-off situation, we want to make sure that we're alert, and I should say any home run situation, we want to be alert to make sure that, you know, there's no trash talk or anything like that going on between the players. But I'll just play this through kind of once, and then we'll kind of talk about it. Sounds off intentionally too. All right. Try to fast forward this. Yep, here we go. Serves to touch the plate, and we're done. Okay, so we're gonna go back here, and this team is in the third base dugout. So we have a home run. He knows it's gone, and the plate umpire here is doing a great job of getting him moving. The wave and stuff, we're not going to talk about for purposes of this clinic. But what the plate umpire here does, I love it. The people that say this is ruining baseball need to stop, because this is a situation where the next game, if this is game one of a doubleheader, what could be a likely outcome of the first pitch of the second game? Now we got stuff that we got to deal with, and we're already throwing people out in the first pitch of the game. That's not how we want to start that game off. This is a plate umpire here who is under control. He is making sure that he is preventing a possible situation. You notice the catcher goes to try to say something. If you watch the catcher's lips, it looks like he opens his mouth like he's going to say something, and then he realizes, oh, the umpire's got it taken care of. We're good to go. This is excellent preventative of umpiring here. Can't beat it. Does a great job, gets him moving. He shows the other dugout too, hey, we're in control of this game. You know, we're trying to move this along. And I think does a really, really nice job of at least addressing the walk-off.
Yeah.
As far
verbiage
as,
for that. No. Go ahead,
go
Jeff.
ahead.
Verbiage for that, it can be really simple. Hey, here we go. Let's go. We got to go. Come on. As I'm running with him. And I'm usually going to go probably halfway up the line with him. Inside the base path. But I'm gonna go halfway up the line with him. Because then I'm between him and the pitcher. And I'm also keeping all of that stuff down. And I'm directing him as we're going, and I'm running with him. And maybe that, I don't know, it may not prevent the wave, but if I'm talking to him halfway up the line, still, he's distracted. Hopefully, he's somewhat distracted and doesn't do stupid stuff like that. But I'm showing that I'm actually engaged in that play and preventing it from getting worse.
As far as base
Not
umpires
allowing
are
that
concerned,
back and forth between the pitcher and the batter.
we'll kind of gets the PowerPoint pulled back up. We'll quick run through base umpire responsibilities. So like with the plate umpire, we want to know what our outfield coverage is. If we have a situation where it's hit to the base umpire's area or zone of coverage, we have the fence threat. Go out. If the fence is threatened, that's at least one of the criteria to go out. So go out. Plate umpire, know what happens if your partner goes out. We don't, as a base umpire, we don't come back into the field necessarily, but know what's going on and be aware of what's going on with anything going on in the infield between the hitter and the fielders. If it's hit to in the coverage area of the plate umpire, observe touches at first, second base. Obviously, still keeping ears out for bench jockey and trash talk and things of that nature.
Yeah, take the batter runner all the way to third, and don't just like stand in the middle and watch them touch. Actively go with them to the bases and get in the vicinity of that. And then my big pet peeve, and this goes back to my playing days when I pitched, is that umpire has to go all the way to third. He's got to get back to first. We don't have to sprint, but we have to move with a purpose. Don't, like, my goal, and some of you have met me, some of you haven't. I'm a pretty big dude, but I am going to beat the batter runner. I want to be at first base ready to go before he crosses the plate. And that's, 150-ish feet from third base. So I'm going to cut out of third base to my position in A, roughly 150, 160 feet. He's got to run 90. So I have to run almost twice as fast as he does. But don't sit there and make the pitcher wait on you to get back into position. You know, obviously, you don't have to, like I said, you don't have to sprint, but you do have to move with a purpose and get back to your position. Don't make him wait on you. All right, hit by pitch. This is fairly simple, but it's a lot of stuff that we don't. I notice a lot of umpires at the amateur level and lower don't do. So when you have a hit by pitch as a plate umpire, first thing we're going to do is call time. And when they wear it, like flush time, you don't have to, like, you know, if it clips their elbow or something or clips their stomach, you can show where it hit them. That's all part of telling the story. But call time, go to the left, watch out for the kid throwing the bat because they'll flip the bat back to his dugout. But clear the catcher, take a couple steps up the line with him, and make sure we're ushering them up the line essentially. and then turn and give a baseball to the pitcher. That way you distract the pitcher. You distract the batter from getting upset and saying something, and then you distract the pitcher from saying something to the batter. So I'm usually, probably 20 to 30 feet up the line, and then I give a baseball to the pitcher, and I go back to the plate. And then we have to put the ball back in play when we have the batter in the box, catcher in the box, pitcher on the rubber with the baseball. So time, not dead ball. Baseball is not a living organism. So time, you can point across with the left hand to first. You don't have to. They should know where to go after they get hit by a pitch. But time, clear the catcher to the left, just like we would on a base hit. Get up the line a little bit, then turn to the pitcher, give him a baseball, get back behind the plate, put the ball back in play when he's ready to go. Fairly simple. As far as the base umpire goes, we can echo time, right? It's never a bad thing to echo. And then we are going to loop in to the infield as well. So essentially, as a plate umpire, I'm handing that batter runner off to Jake. And Jake's coming in, and I don't know a better phrase for this, but rodeo clown. Like a rodeo clown at the pole. We're going to distract the batter and make twofold. Distract the batter. And we're also going to stay in a position where we're closer to our next position, which is B in this instance. But we're also close enough that we can have a conversation and make sure that batter runner is ready to go. Because we don't want to put the ball back in play before they're ready. So give them an adequate amount of time to recover, check with them, make sure they're good to go. We're distracting them from saying anything or doing anything stupid, or at least when they do, we hear it and we're in between them. But work, we still have to work on these plays. And I guess that's the most important thing is we can't just go and stand back and give the catcher a baseball. We have to work. People are more likely to do stupid stuff when they know people of authority are around. You don't speed when you see a cop. You're less likely to say something stupid when you have the umpire right in your hip pocket after you got hit by pitch. Less likely to happen. Not going to say it doesn't happen, but we can help deter some of those things.
Also, if you're out in front of the plate, establishing your presence and doing the stuff that Connor just talked about, when something pops off, and you're doing everything that you can to preventative officiate the situation, we can defend you. If you're out in front of the plate and you establish presence, and I mean, everybody here on this call, I think, with probably the exception of me, was alive when Robin Ventura got pummeled by Nolan Ryan. And we all remember the plate umpire was trying to hold Ventura back, and he went around him. The plate umpire is out there establishing your presence. We can defend that. And as Connor said, if authority is around, people are less likely to do stupid stuff.
Cool. Any questions on hit by pitch? Anything I missed, Russ? Radio silence. Good. All right.
No, I was just not near my phone. I set it down because like I said, I'm playing plumber today. I don't have anything to add. I think you guys covered it quite well.
Thanks.
I just have one quick question. If the plate umpire does not call hit by pitch, would the first base umpire ever call it unless the home plate ask him? I know he's a lot further away. I would say probably not. But I've had coaches come on and say, "Well, you ask the first place umpire." I guess is my real question. And
nope.
I mean, no.
I didn't.
Well, he gets hit in the face, and the plate umpire just stands there. Okay, and you're like, "All right, yeah, you definitely got hit by that pitch." Right. But I'm not coming in early. I'm not coming in late. I'm coming in like, is he alive? Okay, yeah, you can hit by pitch. So yeah, I would definitely say no.
Yep. No, I agree. I just wanted to check.
Go ahead. I feel like that's a plausibility there. Ball ran in hard, umpire flinches, got blocked out. Sure. Then you've got a point where we might have an injury kind of thing. So there's a little bit of a space there for base guy to come in and ask the question. You got him hit by that pitch, right? That might be what I'd offer, but I'm not coming up calling that play by saying, hit by pitch, give him first base kind of thing.
Yeah. Give information if asked. Maybe sometimes in blatant situations where you're like, there's like something must have happened to my partner. I might initiate a conversation about it or have my visual cue of, hey, I have something you don't. Come talk to me, and take a couple steps in towards it. But I'm not going to call time for hit by pitch.
Yeah. I had a situation last fall. It was a 3-man game. It was a college fall ball game. And I had the plate, and we had a ball hit the knob with a bat. And a baseball hitting a bat makes a way different sound than flashing ball. And I knew that I had bat first. And so as I'm explaining this to the coach, I know where my partners are at. We had nobody on to start this, and all of a sudden I glance over and I see my U3 sitting in the B position where he has set up the entire game, and my U1's in the spot that he's always in that situation. To me, that told me right away that I got this right, that they don't have anything going on. And so that's something that you should pregame, hey, if I'm not in a spot that you'd expect me to be, I probably have something for you, and things like that. And so I don't, if I'm blocked, as the plate umpire, I want to come to you if you have anything different. But if there's a way that you can try to indicate that, I have something different, by all means, I don't see an issue with that, but I wouldn't be calling time.
Another good point. Did it hit the hand or did it hit the knob? Ultimately, make a decision. I'm probably going to, unless it's clearly obviously off the knob, like it hits the knob and rockets off in a direction, yeah, I'm going to call that a foul ball. If there's a chance that it hit both at the same time, I'm going to, and I screwed this up, so I learned from it, I called time and it just hit the knob, not his hand. But I'm probably going to call time. I'm going to say, take off your batting glove, show me your hand. And when it's bright red, because they like to choke down on the knob, right? Go to first. And to me, that's a selling point, and it shows that I'm using context clues to make my decision, but it's not necessarily context clues, but evidence to make my decision. Because the coach isn't going to argue, well, his hand's bright red. It hit his hand. Well, it hit the knob too. As red as his hand was, it got the hand. It may have gotten the knob after, but it definitely got the hand. And if we're consistent with that approach, coaches understand that and they appreciate it. And they typically don't argue when you do stuff like that. Because you're not just going, go to first. You're going, time. Let me process this and make an educated decision based on the evidence that's presented to me. But yeah, so, and because I never thought I'd have to say this in a level of game that I've worked, but the hands are part of the body, not part of the bat. So everybody, I think 99% of umpires know that, but just in case somebody's not 100% sure, because we officiate a lot on what we've experienced in our life, and we can be enforcing a rule wrong because somebody told us incorrectly. So, all right. Non-active participants. We got to get through 2 slides. I think we'll make it. Plays of the plate. So, non-active participants. Players not actively involved in the play. On-deck batter, runners that have scored, coaches out of their coach's box, all that kind of stuff. We have to work with everybody. Plays of the plate, when that on-deck batter is trying to indicate a slide direction, I'm talking to him as that player is rounding third. Hey, guys, give me a window. Give me some room to work here. And I'm establishing my presence. I may hold my arms out. I'm not going to touch them, but I'm going to hold my arms out. I may hold an arm out in their direction and say, guys, give me room. Give me room. Let me work. Let me work. And they usually, if you're early in communicating that, they're usually really good about recognizing that you have a job to do, and they'll give you the room necessary to do your job. But it's all about early communication. Don't wait until ball runner, and then we're finally saying something. Once you realize there's a chance for a play at the plate, I'm early. I'm really early. That ball's put in play, and it's a base hit, and we got a runner on second. As soon as that guy gets there, hey, give me room. Let me work here. And I'm constantly reminding him until I have everything converging, because I want to be as proactive as possible, and I want as much room to get in the best position I can to see that call. Coach doesn't care if you ran into his player and that's why you missed the call, or ran into the opposing team's player and that's why you missed the call. They don't care. They want you to get that call right. If I bump into a player because I'm working that angle to get my wedge or to stay on my train track, I'm okay with that. And I'll talk to them afterwards. And players get it. Like, as long as we're not like shoving them out of the way, they understand that you're working hard because you're communicating with them early and often. And they're going to be like, hey, my bad. And you're going to be like, hey, we good? Cool. Awesome. Thank you. Just communicate with them. They'll communicate with you, and they're going to understand that they might step in to signal a slide, and you might step into their way, and they're going to have to move, or you might bump into them. But if we communicate early and often with scored runners, on deck hitters, they're going to appreciate it. They're going to be understanding, and nothing's going to happen from it. And we're going to be able to get in the position we need to make a play, to make that call. On coaches not in the coach's box, typically this isn't much of an issue. Most of us work in the 2-umpire system. So really it's when that first base coach wants to be right on top of the base, right? Or they want to be really deep and standing right next to you. If we get into a 3-umpire system, that coach being right up on top of the base might cause some issues, regardless of first or third base coach. Third base coach always forgets you're there. They're not used to it, especially when we get into postseason. We go from 2 to 3 umpires, and they're not used to it. They're going to be in your way, and you just got to work with them. Just communicate. I'm a big communicator. Like, first base coach is typically always going to try to come shake your hand and introduce himself, right? Hey, I'm Connor. Nice to meet you. Hey, we got to work together today. I'm going to communicate as much as I can. If I ask you to take a step off the line, or give me a little room to work, please be respectful of that. I want to get all the plays right, and that just helps get me in position to make those calls. A lot of times that goes a long ways, because what do they want? You to get plays right. Just be kind. Hey, coach, can I just take a step back for me? Can you give me a little more room to work down here? That way they're not in your ear the entire game trying to have a conversation about everything, because they will. First base coaches don't have a ton going on. They don't have a ton of responsibilities until runners are on base. And they're going to sit there and just talk. And sometimes we got to remind them, hey, I'm out here working. And it's going to be as simple as, love to have a conversation with you. You seem like an awesome person, but I got to work right now. And they're, most of the time they understand. They're not going to think you're a jerk for telling them that. Hopefully they are receptive to that. And at the end of the day, if we have to, they have a box that they're by rule required to be in. If you have to get in a situation where it becomes less peer-to-peer and more parent-to-child analogy for conversation or for behavior, don't be afraid to tell them, hey, I need you to return to your box. I need you to stay in your box. We can say, hey, stay close. We can say a couple other, use different phrases that work for you, try them out. But ultimately, we have that final say in, I've worked with you, I've tried, I've communicated, you're not working with me. We're no longer cooperating with each other. So now we have to be where the rules say we have to be specifically. They're going to want to be back because they don't want to get hit by a foul ball. Get it. Understand it 100%. But they have to be respectful of you working. All right. Last thing, this might be my second biggest pet peeve, is granting time. When that ball comes in from the infield or comes in from the outfield and the shortstop goes, sometimes you do, right? And just look back at him. Sometimes I might say, why? A lot of times, time, please. Why? So I can throw it back to the pitcher. No. Sometimes I just stare at him. Like I gave Sunday, kid comes in, he goes, can I get time? I just looked at him and he goes, okay, thanks. And he's like, okay. Like I didn't say yes, I didn't say no. I just looked at him and he's like, he got the message. And he threw the ball back to the pitcher and he came up afterwards. And I just said, hey, I'm not trying to be a jerk. I said, I just was trying to figure out why. And you realized before I could ask. And my boss doesn't want me to grant time unless I have to. And he's like, oh, I get it. Cool. And then I go, plus you got the best arm on the field. You don't need time to throw the ball back to the pitcher. That's like 30 feet. And they're usually like, okay, this guy likes me. All right, he compliments me. I'm cool with it. We grant time for specific reasons, and they're outlined in every rule set. So if there's a safety issue, if we have a pitcher trying to freeze the batter or runners, it's an acceptable time to grant time. The catcher wants to give defensive signals, or we are calling time for a conference. Those are all, we can all grant time during those situations. But simply because the second baseman doesn't trust himself to throw the ball back to the pitcher, that's not a reason to grant time. If we need a new baseball, absolutely, grant time, switch the ball out. But the kid that slides into first base and wants time every time to stand up, just tell him no. Or you can stand up without me calling time. Don't take the ball out of play unnecessarily. Anything on that?
Yeah, I'm going to echo one thing. Don't. Guys, I hear umpires complain about long game times. This is one of the ways that we have really long games when we're calling time for everything under the sun. That slows games down. And then, God forbid the plate umpire doesn't realize that, you had timeout and all of a sudden we have a run that gets hit and the ball is never put back to the plate. Oh, you had a mess. The ball being in play is our best friend. I like keeping my baseballs in play. It speeds the games up. It's less stuff that I have to worry about. So yeah, call time. I like the line, call time when you run out of reasons not to. And, Connor gave off a bunch of really good reasons to call time. So definitely take those to, if that's something that I would definitely want to apply on the field, is making sure that I know what those are. I can tell you that, yeah, that's a safety issue, freeze. Catcher wants to give signs. Yeah, those are all great reasons to give time in. Don't slow the game down any more than we have to. I will say last night I had a 2 hour and 12-minute 9-inning plate job, not counting foul balls or hit by pitch. We had 3 conferences last night, 2 courtesy runners. We called time to take the ball out of play 5 times last night. That's what I got.
Yeah. Any questions? Anything we didn't cover well enough or we didn't make clear? Cool. All right. I think this wraps up game administration.
Yeah. Probably does. Got ideas?
Wow.
Send them to us.
Yeah. So other than that, beautiful day outside. 2 things as a reminder for those of you in South Dakota. District clinics are getting ready to start up here in about a week, number 1. And then number 2, the South Dakota Umpire Association has hats available for purchase on umpire.com. So if you go to order some equipment and you need a hat or you just need a hat, you can order it from directly from umpire.com. It's usually they'd say it's about a 2-week turnaround time because they make them, they stitch them custom for you. But that logo is on there. You can look at the organization's page and just go directly there and order either black or blue with the logo on it and fit it or flex it.
I did talk to Jesse too. I am working on hopefully within the next couple days, if I get a free hour or something like that, I'm going to do a standalone clinic on equipment. I've tried out a lot of different types of equipment, things like that. We'll post it to the Corn Belt YouTube page, Facebook group, and all that stuff. And things like that, but just kind of talk about some of those things as well as my experience with a variety of equipment, things like that. So look for that too coming up hopefully within the next week or so. And I had first pitch last night, but I think we are 26 days, if my math is correct, from first pitch for the South Dakota High School baseball season. Can't be 28 days, so because that'd be a Wednesday. But yeah, we're less than a month.
It's coming. Yeah. Have a good week.